I'm looking, I like this house, I'm looking for dual agency. I said, and why is that? He said, because I'm looking for money back. I said, really? How much are you talking about? Are you, because he said he bought his house and he got money back from his agent 2%. So I said, are you, because of 2%, you're looking for that? He says, no, more than that. I said, I think you need to look for a Redfin agent.
Yep.
I don't know if I did anything right or wrong when I said, if you're looking at me,
Well,
it's not happening.
You know what
Yeah.
the response, I thought the response
Clarksburg
to that
or Remax
would
Clarksburg?
be
So
the agreement is between the listing agent and the agent.
No,
I
actually
mean-
the listing agreement and the seller.
The
So if
listing
there's
agent
anything
and the
extra,
seller
it
is
goes
what
back
I
to the
meant.
seller. Yeah, it cannot go to another agent.
So,
anyway.
so this is an example we did with Clarksburg. So Redfin repped buyers is the top chart, and Remax repped buyers in Clarksburg is the bottom chart for 2016. So Redfin negotiated 1.9% of the list price for their buyers. Remax Realty Center agents negotiated 3.29% for their buyers. So 1.09 minus 3.29, what's that? 2.2, right? So we saved them 2.2%. So we gave them a 2.2% rebate, right?
Will that go on a publisher slide?
Yep. So I've shared that
Could
out. That's
you-
in Publisher.
You did?
Uh-huh.
Did you share it in
Yep.
Publisher?
In Alney, it's not quite as severe. It's a 1.6% difference, but it just shows that there's a difference there. Because you can always say, well, oh, they suck. It's like, but no, I mean, here's some actual data that we've done. So people always understand that top line discount, right? What they don't understand that there's sometimes a bottom line discount. The agent doesn't show up at the home inspection. Agent doesn't go to the appraisal. Agent doesn't know how to negotiate, right? Agent needs to move on to the next transaction because they can only have so many deals in their pipeline, so they need to move you out of the pipeline, right? Because they cannot work on so many deals at a time. So the quicker they get you out of the system, the better. It's easier. We get that. We understand what that means. But a lot of times the sellers, they could care less as long as they get the discount, right? They're gonna save money, right? But that's not what they're really concerned about. They're really concerned about a bigger bottom line at the end of the day. Okay.
Sorry for distracting.
No, that's okay. That was a good one. All right. Let me open this back up. Okay. 7 vital listing agent responsibilities. So for those of you guys who were in the real estate sales perspectives class that we did earlier in the year, we went through the responsibilities. We went through all of these on the buy side and on the listing side. So today, what we're really only going to be dealing with is number 2, the listing conversion. Basically, you've already found the lead, right? Now we're going to work on going from lead to getting the listing agreement signed. Page 8. So 8 through 10 is going to be the whole, basically the 47 vital listing activities that you're going to have. And you can add on to this. This is just a template to give you some ideas. And all we're really going to be dealing with today is basically page 8, the listing conversion. Items 2 through 8, really. So hopping on over to page 11. So page 11, in this Momentum program, we talk about almost departments within your business, right? We talked about there's a difference between the buyer side and the listing side in your business. And as you build your business, it's always good, almost like if you ever read the book, The E-Myth Revisited, if you build your business as with components that are, separate, even though you head all of those chapters, right? You are the head of the listing department. You're the head of the buyer department. You do all of the running in your business. You do the marketing. You do, everything within your business. You're the CEO. At some point, as you grow, if you have an idea of the structure of your business, you can pop parts out and actually train people because you know exactly how you do your business. You can say, here's the manual with, yellow tabs, blue tabs, pink tabs. Here's how I do my business. Now I can give you the marketing part of my business. I can give you part of my listing. I need help listing. This is how I do it. Now I can train you. Because so many agents, what happens is they get to a point where they're so busy doing the business, they know how to do it, but they don't know how they actually do it. And then they need help. And then they bring someone on and they're like, through osmosis, you will learn how I do my business, right? Just watch me, right? And they don't see what you do between 9 and midnight. They don't see what you do between 7 and 10 a.m., right? And they don't see what you do when you're out in the car. So they sometimes sit there going, okay, when am I going to learn how to do this business exactly the way you do it? So that's a really hard part for agents, is to take that moment to really, either as you're building it or once you've built it, to kind of go back and start kind of categorizing and creating some systems within your business, or just making note of how you do it. But that's the reason why it's, this page is kind of an important part to start looking at within your business and creating it like a department. All right. The point of this class, if you go to the approach, so what we're doing is with the meeting is we're trying to establish on page 11 is a win-win relationship. And that's a big component of this momentum series. Is we're not just here to this is not a numbers game. For us, this is a relational game. We're looking for high quality relationships and high quality transactions. Pricing, we're justifying appropriate pricing. Exposure, there's a 7-step marketing program. You may have a 10-step. You may have a 3-step. That's up to you, but we'll go over that later on. Feedback, hold plan accountable. Maximizing the net sales price. Inspections, negotiating repairs, and closing, realizing goal of selling the home. Okay, so there's this bolded section. This is a really important thing to know. Just like we were just showing with the Redfin statistics, there's statistics you need to know about your business and how you compare to the marketplace. Because a lot of times I'll do coaching with agents, and most agents think that they're pretty average. And I'm like, well, let's look at your numbers. And when we look at their numbers, they're typically higher than average. So you need to know what your numbers are. One is percent of listings that sell, right? How many listings you take and how many of them actually sell, right? There's a really big agent in Maryland who basically his percentage is about 50%, right? He only sells about 50% of the homes he lists, right? Most people don't know that. They look at the number of that 50%. That's a big number, right? But he actually lists twice as many homes, right? So if you're one of the unlucky ones, you're going to have to go find another agent in another 6 months, right? That's a lot of fun, right? After you've lost time on the market, right? You paid 6 extra mortgage payments that you hoped you wouldn't have to make.
How do you compare, like, you're comparing Craig Northrup.
I didn't say that.
Oh. Okay.
Yes.
But
Let's call
when
him
you
Craig
have,
N.
when you have a team,
Uh-huh.
and then you have an individual, how can you compare?
I go in MRIS and I pull up that agent's name.
But that agent has done more in a year
That's what Joe said.
than I've done
Right.
in
That's what Joe said.
20 years.
50% is huge. Yeah.
But
So
does
half
a
the
seller
time
nec-
they're pissed off.
but a seller
50% are
yeah,
pissed.
seller cares about their house. They don't care about the other 1,000 homes they've sold. They care about their house, right? The fact that that person sold that many homes is great,
Right.
but they also have not sold just as many homes in that same year. So that's, and again, you create these knowledge gaps. Again,
Right.
buyers and sellers only see components of the business. We see a lot of it, and we assume that they see the same things we do. And that's the reason why people sometimes, you're like, God, how could they have chosen that agent? And a lot of times it's because they just don't know what a good agent is like. And that's the reason why, like, these keys and indicators of success, it's important to know these things. You know, and sometimes you may not have a great indicator of success, right? Sometimes it just, there's times I've had some really awful listings throughout the years, and you know, So maybe you don't use that indicator, but you find the ones that work for you. Sales price to list price ratio, right? That's the one, where you
So
selling.
you can tweak it?
I'm not saying you tweak it, but you just don't use it, right?
Choose the ones that you want. You
I'm
choose
sure-
the ones that are good for you. They
Like-
show you well.
Like the gentleman you mentioned. I'm sure he doesn't walk in and say, hey, look, I listed 1,200 homes last year. Yes, I sold 600, but I listed 1,200. That's a
just
really
don't say
crappy
it.
stat. I mean, there's a 50% chance I'm going to sell your house, right? He probably doesn't go in saying that, right? Average days to offer, right? Which is one we typically don't talk about a lot. And then average days to close. Average seller satisfaction rating, like customer surveys, right? Yep.
Let me stop a second because they weren't at the thing. Isn't that the one that's 2 weeks? Average day to close is the 2 weeks earlier than
Yep.
Moco?
Yeah.
So they know.
Yeah, like so for Remax Realty Center. So we did a statistic, going back to our thank you, Sarah. So average days on market, Montgomery County's average is 55 days. Remax Realty Center was 40.75.
That's
So
huge.
2 weeks, right? So okay, we sell our homes quicker, 2 weeks quicker. What does that mean? So if you monetize that, that's half a month, right? That's half a month payment. Our average sales price is $400. That's $2,500 mortgage payment. We just saved a client $1,200 right off the bat by just using us, right? That we just stuffed money in their pockets, right? I mean, those are good things to know that a lot of agents don't talk about. Seller testimonials. RBI, so if you go into MRIS, RBI has statistics. There's some really great statistics you can pull out of RBI.
I still don't know how to use this to the full.
Yep. So what happens is they kind of give you the Mid-Atlantic. That is where they start. If you go to change location, you can go Montgomery, and then go down to Montgomery County, and it'll give you reports. I like the monthly reports. So they do monthly reports and yearly. I'm still waiting. I'd love to see the February numbers. Are going to be pretty cool looking, I hope.
Do we have
It
the
takes
sales?
so long to.
I'm sorry. Do we have the sales price to list price ratio
For Remax,
RRC?
I can pull that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And you can pull it too. Yep.
Yeah. How?
Um,
Well, tell me later.
Yep. Yeah. It's through the CMA function in MRIS.
Oh, okay, because
Yeah, they
the
pulled that.
broker code is RRC.
Yep.
Okay, does that pick up Clarksburg as well?
If you do RRC1 and RRC2,
Oh, okay.
you can also just do RRC2, depending on which,
Okay, I'll do it.
So this is like the market statistic detail report for Montgomery County. So I'm talking to a lot of people about this. Like if you look at this up here, the active listings were down almost 17%, January 17 over January 16. So that means one of two things. We either have a great market or a terrible market, right? Because I don't want to just jump to conclusions without having some data that backs it up. So how can you tell if it's going to be a good market or a bad market? I'm going to say probably the prices are going up and the time it takes properties to sell. Because we've been in markets before, 2007, where the bottom fell out. Like no one could sell, wanted to sell.
But it wasn't for good, it was for bad.
Yeah, it was for bad. So are we in that market or are we in a good market? So basically, if you look at the dollar volumes up 16% this year over last, average sold prices up, median sold prices up, number of units sold is up, and the days on market is down. So all those indicators are pointing directly to a very strong market right now. Low inventory, and things are selling higher and in shorter amount of time. And they've got in here, if you want to know how you compare to the market or the industry, they've got the average list price for solds, average sold price to original list price, ratio. I'm not sure what the ratio is. That one I've not been able to figure out. And then attached, detached, and number of units sold. They break it down a little bit more. But this will give you some ideas of what the rest of the market is doing. You can drill down to like a city, right? And you can run charts for cities as well. So it lets you kind of drill down a little deeper. Make sense? Okay. Any other stats that you guys use in your presentations that you like? All right. I've shown some of you guys. I did a postcard to my sphere of influence. I showed them like I'm big on, when we get to the pricing in 2 weeks, I'm big on price per square foot. So I was able to sell the number one price per square foot home in Olney Brookfield between $550 and $650, and the number two between $650 and $750. So I promoted that. It's.
I need to learn that.
Yeah, we're gonna do that. Yep.
I want to learn that. Very good.
All right, moving on to page 12. Okay, presentation versus conversation. Do you know the difference between presentation and conversation?
Yeah, presentation, you, the agent, talk. Conversation is you go
Yep.
back and forth.
Right on. You take in sales perspectives, I guess. So what's the difference between an effective conversation and a regular conversation?
It's a win-win at the end.
Win-win? Yep, that's good. Other things?
Yes.
People are laughing.
Yeah, make it very casual and, interaction.
And you learn more about what they want.
Asking
what
the
they
right
need.
questions. Ask.
Yeah, and having a purpose behind, and that's the answer is having purpose, right? A productive and effective conversation is going to have a purpose behind it. You as the agent, and when you go through this, you typically know there's only a few objections that are out there, right? There's usually very few kind of motivations that people have, and if you go in understanding, what the keys or like the answer key is to the test, so you can base your questions and kind of this conversation on getting to the root of what the seller, because you can always tell people, right? And that's what a presentation is about, is just telling people, I'm awesome, I'm great, I do all these things. But it's not until someone really self-discovers that they come to that conclusion that you're pretty great, but you have to go through a process to help them effectively get to that point. So we'll kind of go over that, how you get to that.
I don't know if any of you have heard Joe Stumps.
Yeah.
I like what he taught us is when you ask the question, when they answer, just go back and ask them, why is that important to you? And keep asking until the end. They actually will break down and tell you exactly what is in their heart. And I've done that many times, and I have really gotten to the bottom of their reasonings.
Yep, and we'll go. Actually, we go into this, and it's great you mentioned that, because there's really three motivations that sellers will have, and we'll get to the heart of them. And you want to get to the heart of them, because that why is so important. Because what will happen is, if you can get to that why, you understand what their true motivation is. When a seller wants to veer off and say, "Well, I was thinking about just going FSBO," right, or I was thinking about overpricing it, what happens is it's sometimes going to violate that why. And if you don't know what that anchor is in the transaction, it's almost like the conversation goes here and there. So that's really good. Yeah. On the middle of the page, the highlighted area, scarcity mentality versus an abundant mentality. Again, it's always good coming from an abundant mentality, even if you really aren't in an abundant place. Because sometimes you see agents say, well, I need this, right? It's, there's an old saying, you want a listing, not need a listing. Because sometimes agents do the worst things when they need a listing or they need a deal. And then they wind up wasting 6 months and then just being in even a worse position, because they haven't allowed themselves to actually clear room to invite more business to come into their business, because they've been working on something that they knew they should have never taken on. Okay. Page 13. So page 13, this is kind of one, you can dog ear this one. This is the basic structure, the 5 stages of converting a lead. So basically you're going to have pre-conversation activities. This is prior to the appointment, right? You've generated the lead. Now This is kind of that phone conversation and everything leading up to pressing the doorbell. Step two, is message one, and that's basically setting the relationship within that appointment. Message two is step three. That is uncovering their needs, prioritizing their needs, and then basically at the end of the day, marketing or exposure and pricing are the two things that sell properties. If a property isn't properly priced, there's no sense in marketing it, right? So we start with pricing first. Step four, message three, this is basically mutual expectations. This is where we get into what most people lead with. This is where we're going to go over the marketing plan, right? And what we do to sell the homes, but also what the seller's responsibilities are and what our responsibilities and roles are going to be. And then the end is basically handling objections, questions, and concerns, and then getting the listing agreement signed. Okay, so stage one. This is small hinges, swing big doors. So having a process in place is always a very good thing. We talk about this in the sales perspective class, is that, people refer systems over just people, right? Because you'll hear a lot of times, you'll see on Facebook, someone says, hey, I'm looking for a great realtor. I've seen this a lot of times, and people are like, oh, Tom's great, Sue's great, Mike's great. And I look at that and I'm like, well, it's just, it's a flood of people who like someone, but why do you like them, right? Is it because they're just funny? Like, I'm not, if I wanted to, be with someone who's really funny, I'd just go to a bar and be with someone who's funny. I want someone who's a good realtor, right? Who I'm going to have a good relationship with. But typically it's the systems that make the difference, right? We talk about like my car sales guy, right? Well, if someone said, well, who do you recommend? I'm looking to buy a Chevy, and I'd recommend my guy because he works in a commercial division. The commercial division is different than the retail division. There's, you're in and out in 30 minutes, right? There is no BS, got to go talk to my manager kind of thing. So there's a system in place that makes it different than a typical experience. So if I was able to refer my guy based on a system as opposed to just Barry is a super sweet guy, he's got a heart of gold, it's a lot better referral, when I can explain how and why I think he's a better referral. So we talked about that in this pre-conversation because of the little things you can do in the beginning, right? Set the stage, right? You have a process for how you intake that lead. So if you write in here the 6 pre-conversation activities, so we ask pre-listing questions, right? Right off the bat, when they call in, we've got a sheet that we go off of every single time, right? These are the questions we need to ask. And we'll get to this. Yep. Number 2 is assemble pricing tools. That we're going to go over in depth in the boot camp on the 20th. We confirm the appointment. We prepare the listing agreement, which you guys know how to do. We get on the listing channel, and we'll explain what that means. And then the hardest part that you will ever have in your real estate career is the last one, which is arrive on time. Because I know you guys have problems with GPS. Waze even tells you exactly with traffic how long it will take you to get there. But we still cannot arrive on time sometimes. Okay. So again, real estate is your rocket science. To build a large, healthy listing inventory, you must be intentional and proactive every step of the way. This requires you to study and practice to consistently improve both large and small components of your listing approach. Okay, so step 1 is, Sarah was looking at me going, yeah, and this is your ask the pre-listing questions. And I always find this is my pet peeve because I work with my wife and my mom on real estate, and I'm like, well, did you find out this? And they're like, no, we'll just go there and wing it. And I'm always like, because you can learn so much going in, right, to set the stage. You know what to expect, but you won't know what to expect a lot of times if you don't ask the right questions. And there's questions you can ask in the beginning that it's harder to ask down the road, right? Because they will assume that you know this. Have you ever gotten into that? Like you're talking to someone, you're 15 minutes into a conversation, and they're bringing up something or someone that no friggin' clue what they're talking about, right? So there's times when it's good to know some information up front. And you can ask some questions up front that you won't be able to ask at the appointment.
Why
Just potentially that you should know that answer, right? So because it's initial, and sometimes they assume that once you get to the door that you are prepared, like with a CMA. I'm going to ask some dumb questions off the bat with the CMA, like with pricing. I want to get them to expose what that price is. And if they expose a price to me that I know is completely off the wall, now I know going into this, my pricing's got to be spot on, right? If I have asked that question, and again, I'm kind of jumping ahead, about the pricing, where they think it should be priced, and I know their point on, I know, okay, I'm not going to have to wrestle too much on the pricing. So it gives me a prep. So obviously, date, taken by, name, address, mailing address. Are they the sole owner? Because that's important to know if there's going to be another decision maker who needs to be at the appointment. Home number, address. Will they be buying another home? And this is important because you want to know, are you going to be able to refer them to an agent in North Carolina? Or, have they already bought it and now the house is free and clear and they really need to move this? That gives you some indication of what their motivation might be. Type of house they're selling, if they know the square feet, bedrooms, bathrooms, garage.
Shouldn't you know that from the tax thing?
Again, they just called me, right? Ring, ring. Hey.
Ring? Oh, okay. You got that lucky. Okay.
Yeah.
Pull the tax records
Yeah, well,
on your phone.
Yeah, you can always pull the tax records. But I also want to know, that, I'll ask questions, and I'm sure you guys have some of these questions that you ask. You got yours? So what are some questions you ask?
Actually, the ones that are not here, I was trying to compare. Are you aware of any repairs that might still need to be done?
Okay.
That I ask them, I always ask them that. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your home?
Okay.
And how long have you owned the home? Of course, we will see that. And how much did you pay for it? Do you remember how much you paid for it? So we get an idea, what kind of equity they may have.
Yep. That's really good.
I can send you this, yeah.
Other things I always ask is, what are improvements you made on your homes that maybe your neighbors don't have, right? Because that's when they start telling you, they start gushing about the Brazilian hardwood floors that they put in, the Ipe deck they overpaid for. They'll start telling you things, or there's things that, we added on a mother-in-law suite. You're looking at the tax records and it's not in there, right? So now okay, this might be bigger than what the tax records say. Because if I'm going to do a square footage analysis, it's important to know.
It may also not have been certified.
Right.
Well,
Yep.
if it's
Right.
not on the tax.
Right. Exactly.
It's still creating.
Bedrooms, garage, condition. They've got condition excellent, good. I like Lavina's that rate your house on a scale of 1 to 10. How long have you owned the home? Have you made any updates, improvements? What prompted you to call me? Right? Because you want to know, where did this come from? Because sometimes you assume you're just happy they called, so you don't even want to ask.
Actually, I asked that when they're about to hang up. Then I said, by the way,
I'd like to thank whoever referred me.
yeah,
How'd you get to me?
how did you get my information?
I love that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
I
like
always
that.
ask.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think asking at the end is a very good one. Because again, they may be like, oh, whoops, I didn't mean to call you. I'm sorry. I thought this was someone else.
Sometimes it's a referral
Oh, yeah, I
too.
wanted
They don't
everybody
say
to
it.
put their.
Yeah.
And then
That's
you can
okay,
call
I'll
the
redo
person
it.
back who gave the referral and thank them, and then so you look like a hero, like you're saying thank you. And they're like, oh,
It is.
they
It's
thank
a
me,
link.
so I'm gonna give them their name out
It's a
again.
link.
So
Yep. Will you be interviewing other realtors, and have you set these appointments? Right? There used to be a theory, we talked about this, you always want to be the last realtor in. Number 3. I don't like being number 1 all the time, because I think what happens is you wind up doing a lot of educating sometimes, and by the time they were gone to number 3, you're talking at least on a higher level with them. However, there are certain agents who will if they go in there before you, they're either gonna get the listing or they're gonna get thrown out on their ear. And we're gonna teach you some
In
strategies.
other words, if you don't get it when you're there,
So meaning, if you're the number 2 person and this person's ahead of you, she's either gonna get it or the cops are coming to take her out of the house. So
Most important thing that I have gotten feedback when they're interviewing few agents are the way you dress up.
Okay.
I can't get over the fact that some agents really do go in there not professionally dressed.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
You know, you're a professional, and I have gone through areas like Frederick, and you know, people just go in.
Yep.
And they said, you're professional dress, we're taking you, that's it. They don't think of anything else.
I completely agree. I was just showing a property over the weekend, and this agent was dressed so sloppy. I wouldn't go to the grocery store dressed like that. I was shocked. I thought the client was the agent, and went to shake hands and say hello, and you know, that sort of thing. And he was the client. The agent looked like crud.
Yep. In this, we'll actually teach you some of those I'd say bulldog methods, but there's ways that if you are in there and they've got other interviews lined up behind you, if you've done a good enough job, in theory, you should be able to basically close it that night. And we'll work on, and I'll show you how that close can happen without them having to call the cops.
Yeah.
The other thing I'd like to ask is, have you had any other appraisals on? I want to find out what price they have in mind for their house.
Yeah.
You know, have you seen any comps sell recently around your house? Well, that's why I'm calling you to tell me what it's worth. Well, have you had an appraisal done on your house? And then hopefully by that time I've pulled up Zillow RPR, or I've looked at some comps and in front of me real quick and say, well, I just saw one on down the street. Your neighbor sold for $450. If you throw out a price like that, they'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe that house. It was a divorce situation and they had the worst. And you hear okay, so they're thinking this thing's going to be north of $450, right? So I want to engage with them on the phone, at least on some pricing that I know what I'm up against.
How does that help you?
Has it helped me? Just so I know what I'm prepared for, you know?
Right, but how does, in essence, it is what it is. So how is that going to change your result?
Yeah, and that's a really good point. I just want to make sure that I know that's going to be an issue that's going to come up. That I'm not going to be blindsided that this is like, they are way off on pricing, right? That I've got a lot of work to do and I'm going to have to spend a lot more time on the pricing.
So when I get leads online, I actually send them the questionnaire.
Okay.
Instead of asking them,
Uh-huh.
I tell them, especially if they're just interviewing me over the phone, I said, I'm going to go ahead and send you the questions. Please answer them and email them back to me. And that already sets me on that stage where nobody else had done it.
Yeah.
I already gotten everything, and they're proactive. They're willing to respond. So I know they're willing to go forward much more rather than just consider me a bystander or just, somebody just
So
they're
do you
interviewing.
get a good response?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
And on the mortgage side, just to throw in, the same thing on the mortgage side. I do a lot of stuff on email because that's how people like to interact business. They don't like the phone as much, which I was amazed about, but it's really changed over the past several years. They respond quickly to emails. I get my questions answered and we move forward.
They hate phone.
They really do.
And
They're
I
afraid
love-
of it. It's the worst thing.
Not,
Right.
not the text message.
No, I
Message
email.
is good.
Oh, I constantly text.
Are you?
Yeah.
Well, with
I
financial
get the
stuff.
confirmation appointment through text message.
Yep,
Wow.
and that's, yep. So the second step is assembling the pricing tools. Again, pricing and exposure are the two things that are going to sell the property. So as we're prepping for our appointment, we're going to spend some good time on those pricing tools. And again, we're going to go over that on the 20th. 3 is, and this is on page 16, is confirm the appointment. Professionals always confirm appointments, right? Confirming the appointment 3 to 4 hours before your scheduled meeting. The meeting is before 11 a.m. the night before. Text is a great way to confirm that appointment these days. If it's a call, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you've got the script here. You definitely want to make sure, though, that you ask if both parties are going to be there. I mean, it is like I've been to listing appointments where, like, the wife's interviewing us and the husband's in the study. It's like, oh, crap. Like, literally, I mean, it's like, can we just leave now? Like, I'm hungry.
You're gonna have to do
I'm going to
it
go.
again, yeah.
I want to go home. Like, we're not getting this listing if we're just interviewing with one party and not both.
Yeah.
And again, there's some situations when it's a sphere or something where maybe it's an initial. But if this is truly kind of, this is the listing appointment, you know they're going to make a decision in the next week, you know, because that timing always makes a difference too. When they're going to make that decision to list the house, that kind of gauges how much of the presentation you're actually doing at that first initial meeting. But if it's one that you're going to be listing, you want both parties there. Step 4, you can write this in. Step 4 is the listing agreement. I just write it at the bottom of this page. So what I did was I wrote at the top of this, number 2 is assemble the pricing tools. 3 is confirming the appointment. 4 is the listing agreement. Page 17. So what the hell is this getting on the listing channel, right? Is this like some type of like Netflix show? I mean, what is this? So getting on the listing channel just means like getting in the right mindset, right, for this appointment. Wherever you are, be there. Brian Buffini used to talk about he'd play Carmen on the way to his appointments, you know, and it just like, it goes like, it kind of like slowly builds and builds and builds, and then it just comes to a crescendo, and he's like so friggin' fired up by the time he gets into the house. He's like on, you know, totally on fire.
I watch him.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I have a podcast downloaded every day
Yeah.
for, you know, his podcast.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
new. And that's what I listen to until I reach my appointment.
Yep. So just mindset wise, no matter what kind of baggage you're carrying into the appointment, professionally, personal, spiritually, you just got to kind of wipe the slate clean, because those people don't care about the last transaction you went through or what's going on, you know, that you forgot to set the crock pot, you know, you got to be in the moment with your clients. So getting on the listing channel requires you to clear your head, focus on the conversation, and imagine the desired end result. So what's the desired end result?
Sign.
No.
No?
Getting the listing.
It's
agreement signed on selling
It's
the house.
getting a win-win relationship, right?
Connection.
Because anyone can get a listing, right? I could tell someone I'll list their house for 1.5 when it's really a 3-bedroom townhome in Montgomery Village, and they'll probably list with me. So again, it's something that's going to be a win-win relationship,
Right.
because we don't need every single listing, right? All right, and then number 6, 18. So you guys are going to like probably get like a tattoo on your wrist so you can look at this every time, because you don't look at your clocks. Just joking. I'm just as guilty. Arrive on time. And this is kind of the, you know, a big thing. You know, if you show up, like, have you ever had like a contractor like actually show up early? Like, you're like, whoa, you know, it almost like it's impressive, you know, that they do that. So if you can do that, I think a lot of times you wind up beating the competition.
Buffini says come 5 minutes before, and just with your book. I think Buffini or Joe Stump, with your book or pad, walk around the area. They may be thinking strangers, who is this? But you're professionally dressed and you have your pad and you're looking and writing your notes.
Yep.
When you get in, you're already telling them, hey, I have found out everything about what you need to do on the exterior.
Yeah.
Just like home inspector.
I'm glad we live in a safe area.
I'm
If we were in
not-
Miami,
and
in my
then-
previous
okay.
house, somebody was walking around my neighborhood. I don't know how they're
I'm
dressed.
not
I'm calling the
doing
cops.
anything.
So,
I'm not doing anything.
So, couple rules of courtesy. Park on the street, not in their driveway. Again, part of that is, you know, their teenage kid may need to get out of the driveway, and now you got to move you're like right in the middle of like your clothes, and like, you know, you got to move your car, and then you come back in, and you know, mom went upstairs to put the baby to bed, and now you're like, your whole mojo's off. And just as a courtesy, don't park in their driveway, because you may be parking in the king spot, right? Now you're in trouble. Introduce yourself. Offer to remove your shoes. Some cultures and some households, people don't wear shoes in their house, and it's just a common courtesy. Move towards the kitchen or dining room. Never do an appointment in a living room or a family room. It's just so hard to kind of lean forward in some comfy chair, and the sellers are like, you know, and they're, you know, always at the kitchen table or dining room table. It's a nice workspace. And always ask which chair to sit at, because again, you know, it's like
You don't want to sit.
you don't want to sit in the king or queen's chair. Ask for a tour of the home, right? Set your stuff down. And then at that point, ask for a tour of the home. Before we get started, why don't you pretend I'm a buyer and show me around your home, pointing out what you feel are the selling features and amenities of the home. This is not a staging tour, right? This is not the opportunity to start really like hammering them on like, ooh, that looks terrible. Like, save it until you got the listing. At that point, then you've got your corrections that you need to make on condition. 5, build rapport and take notes of the home. They always talk about, Ford, family, occupation, recreation, dreams, things to talk about. Take notes in regard to the home's features, amenities, and condition. As this is where you'll predetermine which value range the home most identifies with. This is also a perfect opportunity to warm up, set a conversational tone, and exhibit your charm. Afterwards, both parties should feel very comfortable communicating with one another. This is just kind of breaking down walls, just making it personal. And here's one thing I've kind of learned. I love being able to take photos when I'm doing this walkthrough. However, what I've seen in my experience has been it's very off-putting for some sellers because sometimes they're not ready, or I've seen some assume that like I'm taking marketing photos, right? It helps so much to have. I mean, it's such a balance. I love having those photos because when I go back and I'm like kind of remembering the house, trying to do some things, it's so nice to have those photos. But I've actually stopped doing it because I've put off so many sellers by doing it because they've been concerned about.
Great news.
What's that? Yeah.
You also don't have the listing yet, and you're taking pictures.
Yep.
That
Yep.
makes sense.
Personal items and stuff. You're
Yeah.
worried about. Maybe they're trying to take a picture of my expensive painting. And hire some burglar to steal it. You
That's
never know.
right.
People are crazy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good point, actually.
And then we return back to the kitchen and ask to be seated. The other thing with you on your listing appointment, this is a little trick I've learned. Bring the lockbox with you. It's one of the few kind of tools that actually it's a presumptive close, right? If you could, you'd bring the sale sign with you in the post, like drag it into the house, like just set it in the front yard, like that would be a very presumptive close, but it's just not as practical. But I think bringing the lockbox with you, it is a very presumptive close. I'm here to list your house. There's no reason why I should leave without putting this friggin' thing on your front door.
Lockbox and coming soon.
Yeah.
Rider.
Well, you're not gonna have a sign in the front.
Yeah, but you put it anyways for the sign company. You just put it on the side. So
Most
Yep.
people at that stage are not ready.
They could. Well, again, what we're talking about in this
'Cause if you
this
ask
scenario.
listing questions,
Well, in this scenario, they're ready to go. They're interviewing agents, and they're going to be listing the property. This is with the assumption that this is one that's ready to go. I mean, there's always theories on, again, I've had those clients, you met them in August, they're not going to put their home on until March. That appointment is a whole lot different than this. A lot of times, it's literally just the walkthrough. I'm giving them like a huge spread on pricing, and these are ones where it's typically a referral. It's a little bit more casual. I'll come back and redo this
yes.
once we get up to that point where we're coming on the market. Because sometimes what you'll find is they wind up interviewing some people. I've had best friends' parents, I'm in the basement, like thinking, calculating the commission. And they're like, yeah, that's what one of the other realtors said. When I told them about, staging something in the basement, and I'm like, other realtors said what? Said who? I'm like, totally, I had nothing prepared.
Once the word is out,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
they somehow everybody knows.
Just assume that you're
It's
always
like-
being shopped.
Yep.
Yep.
All right. Page 19. So this is kind of a recap. Let's see here. Page 19 is a recap. So why do we ask pre-listing questions, right? We need to be prepared. We know confirming all the appointments. You know why we should do that?
Profession.
Getting on the listing channel. Why do we arrive on time? Why do we offer to remove our shoes? This is just kind of a rundown of why it's important to do these things and making sure you understand. Okay. So Lavina, this gets into your, this is the actual listing conversation. And this gets into kind of the conversational zone. And what you were talking about, it's that engage, deliver message, and then gain agreement. Once seated, you're ready to enter the conversational zone. There's 3 basic messages we're going to deliver in our appointment. Number 1, not all realtors behave alike. We're different from most realtors. We must find and agree on the most appropriate price entry point. And then we each have rules and specific expectations. You telling sellers you are different and can add more value isn't enough. You must allow them to self-discover what a working relationship with you would be like. So the conversational approach to be used is as follows. Engage, and another word for engage is ask questions, or phrase is ask questions. Once we ask questions, it gives us the ability to deliver a message. Once we deliver that message, then we can gain agreement. Make sense? Then gaining agreement, right? What happens so many agents is they do hour-and-a-half long listing presentation. They finish up and then they're like, any questions? The seller's like, you lost me 15 minutes ago, but they don't say it. And they're like, yeah, we're good. Thanks. Appreciate it. Okay. And it's, you lost them somewhere in the process. You didn't ask enough questions. You assumed that they wanted this, right? And you went on for 30 minutes about how they wanted this. And they don't want that. They want this, right? And then, but you didn't know that. And then you're finally asking them if you lost them somewhere on the path, and they're just like, you are so off base that I don't even know where to start. So they don't even try. So it's always good to make sure, it's like these little tiny rudder turns here and there to make sure you're good.
Can I tell you
yeah.
when I sit down at the dining table, I tell them, I said, when we decide, today is a day when we are going to decide whether we both are going to be married in this relationship of selling your home. And if we have reached that stage that we're going to agree to work with me, we're going to be married for the next 3 or 6 months. And everything that we discuss has to be very open. We have to open the door of communication just like a marriage. And that always takes them aback. Always.
All right. So you just basically read off the win-win. That's cool. Yeah, exactly. Yep. And that's what that win-win relationship is. Exactly. Because a marriage is a win-win relationship. For some of us, not
For
me.
some.
What happens if they're going through a
A
divorce?
terrible divorce. That's what I was thinking. How about if they're going through a terrible
Well,
divorce?
some it's like a big W and a little W, right? Okay. And note, scripted dialogue is a must, right? You don't want to turn into a robot, but you need to have some dialogues. Again, there are some known objections sellers are going to have. There are some known goals sellers are going to have, right? There's 3 known goals that these sellers are going to have. We're going to get into that. You know what they are. Follow a script and you can help, basically lead this conversation. Okay. So 21, this is what Lavina was saying. This is setting the tone, right? And there's 3 components to setting a tone. There's setting the win-win, setting the agenda, and then lastly, leading with confidentiality. So the win-win. First, let me say I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with me. I want you to understand that from the very beginning, that my goal is not to come in and give you a presentation about what you think it is. I want you to hear, but rather have a conversation to see if a win-win working relationship can be created. A lot of real estate agents are willing to sacrifice that win-win relationship in order to simply take a listing, and I want you to know right up front that I don't operate that way. With me, it's win-win or no deal. Basically, I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear just to take your listing. So then we set the agenda. And then for some of you guys who've been in other sales training, this is what they used to call in the olden days safe harbor, right? You give them an agenda, right? Because sometimes what's happening is sellers are feeling a little, anxious because like, what does this mean? What am I in for? And what you do is you set the agenda. There's 3 things we're gonna go for, and you'll see the 3 things are each of the highlighted items. Now, in order to create a win-win relationship, I first must, number 1, uncover your needs and goals. Therefore, I'm going to ask you some very specific questions and take notes. Will that be okay? Right? So I'm asking permission. Can I ask you some specific questions just to make sure I'm on the same page of what your needs are? This is that needs analysis. Then what I like to do is kind of discuss and agree on the most appropriate price. After that, we'll thoroughly review the roles and expectations necessary for success in a working partnership. Is that agreeable? Is that something we can do? So just so you know, the third one, the review the roles and expectations, this is where your marketing presentation will come in. because so many agents when I've taught this course, and I've talked to agents about this, they're like, I lead with marketing, right? I lead with presentation. And actually what we're doing is we're almost saving that to the very end. Because one is, if it's not going to be priced right, doesn't matter how much marketing you folks do, you're not going to sell that property, right? And there's 40% of the marketplace that proved that point, right, of the expired and withdrawals. Lastly, we've got confidentiality in there. Great. I want you to rest assured that anything you said that is said here tonight will remain totally confidential. So please feel free to be as open and honest with me as you feel you can be. Is that fair? So again, who talks about confidentiality? Doctors, attorneys, professionals, right? So we're taking on that role of confidentiality, right? And we want this to be an open conversation. All right, so then we have a transition here. Great. With that said, let's talk about your vision of a successful transaction. Okay, so page 22, and then this is that uncovering the needs dialogue. So before assembling appropriate plans and strategies, we must define what their goals are. Thus, stage 3 begins with uncovering the seller's needs. You must stay neutral. This is not a time to address or debate each specific issue, right? We're just listening. We're just trying to get them to get to their why. On a scale of 1 to 10, this is the dialogue. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being very desirable and 1 being not desirable at all, what one thing has to happen to make the sale of your home a 10? In other words, what has to happen for you to consider this sale to be a success, right? And the answer they give is, so what's important about the answer they just gave, right? And then, is there anything important about that? So what you're trying to do is, so there's really, and then the next one is, what one thing could you add to make the sale even better than that, right? And then you question, so what's important about that? And then, all right, so lastly, if you could add just one more thing on to make this a 10 plus, or the most perfect transaction, what would that be? So here it is. There's 3 answers the sellers will give. Price, right? Timing, something will be timing related. The other will be something around the realtor expectations and roles. Sometimes it's commission, sometimes it's marketing, but it's typically going to be 3 things. That's it. Price, timing, and the realtor role. And so if you flip to, let's skip 23, go to 24. The other thing is, this talks about uncovering needs. You must gain a thorough understanding of those needs. Uncovering needs is vital to your validity as a real estate consultant. Again, at some point the seller may question you asking these questions, right? They may say, well, why is this important? Why are you asking? These are goofy questions. Some may ask that. But again, it's necessary, right? It's vital to us having success in this, because as a win-win relationship, I need to know. So it's basically, as I explained earlier, I'm here to attempt to create a win-win working relationship. Thus, it's important that I understand what your win is, right? So the only way I understand your win is we discuss it. Besides, if I don't know your specific needs in the transaction, then we won't be able to identify the most appropriate price entry point. So if you move down, anytime other than when describing price, the seller uses the words such as good, regular, competent, knowledgeable, quick, low, high. You should ask further definition by following up the question, what's your definition of? Because what you'll see in here, now we'll move to page 23. This is kind of like a working dialogue on page 22. So page 23. So real world example. So I'll role play this with Mark. So Mark, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being very desirable and 1 being not desirable at all, what one thing could happen to make the sale of your home a 10?
I think that a good price. I think I need a 20,000.
Well, just say good price.
Good price.
Okay, so what does a good price mean to you?
A good price means that I need $20,000 to put down on our next home. Okay,
so 20,000 is a pretty specific number. How did you come up with that number?
When my wife and I talked, we would like to make a good investment.
Okay, right. So Mark's why is basically he feels that if he sells for less than a $20,000 profit, he would have felt like it wasn't a good investment in this property. So he's thinking on an investment point of view. I was trying to pull a little bit more out what's a good price, right? Why is that 20,000 so important, right? Because sometimes people will tell you, well, I need to buy furniture for the next house in Florida, right? And, so you got to understand kind of where they're coming from and why that's important. So what one thing could be added to make the sale a 10 plus for you?
Sell it quickly.
Okay, so what does quick mean to you?
We'd like to be out of the home in the next 60 days.
Okay, so when you say 60 days, you mean like actually stuff on the moving truck and going to Florida?
Right.
Okay, so those are things I want to pull out to find out what that is, what that 60 days means, because that's also a determination. Because 60 days, sometimes people say, well, we'll be under contract in 60 days. When they say under contract, they actually may mean in the next home in 60 days, or they may mean just like under contract, right? To us, we have our own definition of what under contract means. So you want to ask those questions. And then what other thing can make this transaction a 10 plus for you?
But I think that's your job to market and promote the house in a professional manner, Jim.
Okay. So
He's a toughie.
So did you feel that the agent who listed your home prior didn't do that?
She was awful.
She was awful. So what did she do that was so awful?
She was dishonest.
Okay. What kind of things did she?
She overpriced my home and told me that I was going to get $1 million.
Okay.
And I've been sitting here for a year now, and she just asked me for price reductions. She's
Okay.
not doing anything.
Okay. All right. So again, you're going to ask these questions to kind of drill down a little bit, see what they mean by, by some, because a lot of times they'll throw out a vague answer. So you want to just drill down a little bit more, figure out. Okay. Any questions on that? Again, this is something I'm trying to constantly work on, because I used to stop at a lot of these questions and write them down and think that's exactly what the answer is. And if you ask that, like you were saying, a couple more questions, dig a little bit deeper. Sometimes it's just a throwaway, right? They assume that that's what they're supposed to say, and then you get to really the heart of it. All right. Okay, let's go to page 24. Oh, we already did 24. I'm sorry. Page 25. So now that we've uncovered their needs, right? It's going to be price, timing, and realtor expectations are the three things that are going to come up out of these three needs. 99.9% of the time, they will not typically throw anything else out at you that's different than those. So now what we need to do is prioritize those, right? So after you uncover their needs, you must prioritize them. Why do you think it's important to prioritize them?
Do you think they changed their mind in the last 30 seconds? Or didn't they just tell you?
What's that?
What were the important things to them?
So you asked what's important. Okay, what else is important and what else is important? So they may not have ranked them, and as they're going through, their first initial answer may have been a scripted answer in a sense, right? They know what's most important. It's getting the highest price for my home, right? It's walking away with $125K. Well, what's next most important? Well, shit, we got to get in Florida because I got that job transfer coming, and actually, I will lose $125 in salary if I don't get there by July. That may have come out second, right? But that's really the most important part, right? So that's when it's getting back. You've got their three priorities, and now you want to prioritize them. So of the three needs, which is most important to you? What's the second most? And then leaving blank as the third. So timing and price are obviously going to be related to pricing, right? If they do say that the most important thing is the realtor, then you're going to jump, instead of going to pricing, you're going to jump to roles and expectations. So the next part of this is based on going to the pricing. But if they do say that it's realtor role expectation, then you roll into kind of what you do to sell homes, and then you're going to have the conversation on what you do to market, expectations, and commissions. So you always address the number one priority. And again, a lot of this is the reason why we want to identify these hot buttons, because if they decide something down the road, like once you get to pricing, and now they want to overprice it, the timing's their number one priority, right? And then they want to overprice the property. You know what their number one need is, and you can bring it back down to, well, if we overprice it, we're not going to hit that 60-day goal to get out of the house, right? And here's why. Properties that, and so it gives you something to kind of latch back onto. All right. So this is page 26. This is the transition to pricing tools. And they put regular in here. So we're going to, again, on the 20th, we do the pricing boot camp. It's way too much to do this plus the pricing boot camp all in one momentum session. So we break it up. This is a very generic pricing tool that they go through in this. So basically transition is, so what you told me is being out of your home in 60 days is the number one priority. Let me assure you that my goal is indeed to get you out in 60 days. And really getting you out in 60 days revolves around two basic components: pricing and exposure, right? Since exposure does us little good if the home is incorrectly priced, we should first focus on developing a pricing strategy that will lead us to the most appropriate price entry point. Let me ask you this. Do you think pricing strategy is important, right? Now you want to get buy-in, because they may say, no, absolutely not. It'd be stupid if they did, but some may say. So you want to constantly, that's why you're asking for these tie downs, right? You want to get them to agree that yes, pricing is an important part. So when they say yes, you say exactly. What we must remember is that the pricing game is all about justification. Therefore, we must put ourselves in a position to defend our list price. The moment we're unable to defend our list price, we lose leverage. And when we lose leverage, we start leaving your money on the table. Mm-hmm. Now, to me, leaving your money on the table is simply unacceptable. Wouldn't you agree? Yeah, sellers would agree. There's little tie downs in here, and this is, again, from if you've taken any other sales, if you've ever done any Amway sales, anything like that, you're constantly doing these little tie downs, getting agreement. It's you just kind of like get agreement, now you can move forward. Get agreement, move forward. As opposed to, again, the whole presentation model, which is present, and then hope you didn't screw up in that whole presentation, and then not know where to go back to kind of make any corrections. All right, so now we transition to the CMA. So now you told me being completely out of your home. Oh, I'm sorry, this is the one if it was FSBOs or expires on 27. I'm going to skip that one. Okay, so intro to the pricing tools. Don't overwhelm the client with a 40-page CMA that shows multiple pictures of homes sold. Instead, present 3 basic CMA summary pages to summarize comparable homes that have sold, comparable homes that are active, and comparable homes that have expired. I'll show you real quick what one of these looks like from our previous boot camps. All right, so what we do is, out of MRIS, we pull a export. We do an export of data. And what we try to do is, we pull the sold comps out, export them into an Excel spreadsheet with a bunch of columns in here. And now what we do is then we modify these columns a little bit. We take some columns out. The idea is, first we rank by price per square foot. I create a price per square foot column of the solds. And then what we look for is we look for 6 big factors that determine value in a home. So a lot of people always say, well, condition. Condition, yes, but condition can change, right? Condition does affect value, but there's bigger factors that affect value much more because you just can't change them. Oil, heat versus natural gas. Well and septic versus public. The big ones, walkout basements, finished basements. Decks. Granted, sellers can finish basements. They can create a walkout. Rarely do they ever do it to put a house on the market. So you can see trends in here. Age of the home, construction type, all brick versus just siding. Lot size. So what we look at, we try to find different trends within those categories. So for instance, you've got a split foyer home with an unfinished basement. Well, you look in the statistics, and the homes that show up in the highest price per square foot range, these are all colonials with fully finished basements. right? Built in the 80s. Yours was built in the 70s. You look here, most all of these are split levels, not split foyers, and they too have walkout finished basements. And then you look at the bottom level, and most of these are ramblers and split foyers with unfinished basements. So it helps kind of whittle down that you can actually talk logically about price. And it takes some of the stigma of price away. Because what you'll find in here is within these ranges, sometimes like the highest price properties that I've pulled in the CMA wind up in the lowest price per square foot category, right? So what happens a lot of times is just like when your kids go to order off of a fancy menu, they go to the highest price item on the menu and they just order that, right? It eliminates that. They have to basically have a real conversation about where value lies. Because again, if you've got that split foyer, unfinished basement, there are no split foyers with unfinished basements in the highest price per square footage category. Why do you feel we belong up in there, right? If there are no homes to justify that. Well, hopefully you're dealing with a logical seller and you can walk them through that.
This is what I need to be.
Yep. And
This particular salary.
Yep. And again, it's not a perfect science. And again, you've got to you got to massage this. But what you come down with is you wind up coming up with a range of square footage. So you come up with a high range, a middle range, and a low range. And let's say we landed in the middle range. The middle range in this example varies from $260 to $240. That's still a $20 per square foot range in price. So now we look at condition, right? Because condition can change. Condition can be updated, modified, and changed. So then we decide, okay, well, we have brand new kitchen, brand new baths, brand new hardwoods. So we should be at the 260, not the 240. So in a sense, what we did is we've helped them eliminate 2/3 of the comps that we're looking at. And then within our comp range, taking into account the condition and come up with the right price. Because typically what happens in pricing is you know exactly what that price should be. You come in and you present that price. The seller's opinion's here. And now you spend 30 minutes trying to stretch that gap and come bring them together. And it's a battle of opinions. They think they're right. You think you're right. As opposed to, I don't know what the price is in a sense. Let's walk through this. Here's some practical things that we have, right? Here's what the market's telling us. Out of the solds, again, we're a split foyer with an unfinished basement. None of them have sold in that top range, right? Why do you think we belong there? Well, we have a deck, okay? So there's things that you can kind of pull out. What's a deck worth? You can actually isolate these things and figure out if you're dealing with a reasonable seller. I'm kind of glossing over this a little bit, but that's the point behind using these spreadsheets.
But where is your summary sheet?
Where's my summary sheet?
You just said summary of 3.
Oh, there's 3
to
categories.
include a
The
summary.
categories of
That's sold.
the colonials, the styles.
Yep. So if you look at, actually, this does show you a lot of these.
No, I think she means this is the sold sheet.
No,
The-
this is a whole list. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Do you have a summary sheet
With the listings on them?
with? See, I'm trying to decide whether it's a good idea. I mean, I used to, say recommended price, da. But that is sometimes not the best idea because then it's coming from me. In other words,
Yeah, it's your opinion. Uh-huh.
right. So what do you suggest? You suggest this, but is there any summary that you provide in writing?
So if I bring a summary, then I've already come to a conclusion.
Right.
And I've told them that I've come to a conclusion. When I want to really collaborate with them.
Okay.
And ideally, hopefully, we come to the same number at the same exact time, even though I know what the number already is.
That's funny because you're running things differently.
Oh, I know. Yeah, exactly.
You disagree with
so-
your mom?
Betty and I have the right. Betty and I have the kick each other under the table method for pricing. So it's usually I'm like swinging like this, like going, oh God, no. But yeah, it's.
I like your method. I mean,
Well, it's
that's
logical.
but the,
It's-
see, and I always felt like I also had to. So I was doing both, and then I think that they were using this as my conclusion, and it doesn't work that way. I think
Right. This is not a conclusion. This is basically data.
this is
and
working
this is what.
with them
Right.
to determine the price.
Right. And,
But
and
they don't have the ability to get that information, and we do.
if I've got enough information ahead of time, what I will do is I'll highlight things in this spreadsheet that like this is a comp that's just like us, and I'll highlight it.
Okay,
And
so-
now it's at the, the 248 price per square foot range. This is your exact model, just on the cul-de-sac over in Albany, whatever it is.
So to summarize, I'm just trying
Huh?
to think after you go over the pricing. To summarize, because they say you're the professional.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to get into the details. What do you think?
So based on looking at this, we have a split foyer with no basement, of exact in the split foyers with no basement are ranging between 260 and 240, right?
Right.
Okay. Based on your condition, we looked at the 10
Right.
that were very similar and the same. You've got brand new kitchen, brand new bathrooms, new hardwoods, new carpet. You probably deserve to be in the higher part of that price per square foot, that 260 range. Would you agree? Okay, so let's do the number. You're 1,700 square feet times 260, and then we come up with the price.
Do you allow for you're looking at market conditions?
Right. So what we do is that's the price that the sold comps are telling us, and through this, what then we do, we test it against the active market. Okay. So now what we're going to look at is our price entry point. This is the value that the property should be priced at based on what others have bought. Now let's look at the current market, because what happens is when you look at the actives, it could really help you, right? There could be like only one house on the market in your price range, and it's grossly overpriced. So maybe, even though I think we should, this tells us we should be at 475, I think we can stretch to 490. Or there could be 30 homes that are priced at, 460 that are just like your house active on the market. There's no way, even though the solds tell us we could have gone for 475, there's no way we can come in price entry point at 460.
And it all depends, like, to price something, you gotta price it right there. In other words, right before your list.
Yeah.
See, I don't.
And if I can punt, I'm going to try to punt on pricing as long as I can.
Right.
But if I've got to make a decision, I got to make a decision. And most sellers want to walk away with some. It's rare that I've been able to, I'm not going to say weasel, but sneak out of an appointment without ever giving them some range of pricing. And that range, basically, it's almost like 6 months. The range is this, right? 3 months, 2 months, 1 month, 1 week, right? I'm going to give them those ranges. Then I shrink the range down because, again, I always leave them with, hey, look, the next comp that comes on could totally blow this out of the water for the better, right? And for the worse.
Right.
I say that really low, the worse, but
Or for worse.
right. But I always let them know that there's going to be there's going to be a range depending on what's on the market.
What time frame do you pull from? How far back?
6 months.
6 months.
Unless it's that rare property that
You got to go with
historic,
here 'cause there's nothing.
built 200 years ago,
Right.
and I just don't have much.
Okay.
So that's a little bit about how the momentum pricing tool works. And we also look at the expireds to see if there's any correlation with the expireds. And rarely can I find some good correlation, but hold on. Here's what I find is that just by presenting expireds to them, hold on, there's 20 homes that didn't sell. Yeah, there's 20 homes that didn't sell in your neighborhood last year. Holy crap. I thought everything sold, right? I saw signs go up. I saw signs go down, right? You just assume people sold those. They don't understand that 40% of the marketplace expires of withdrawal in Montgomery County. So, make sense?
But they go back on the market.
Some, yes. Sometimes they got to go for a lot less. But when a seller lists their property, I don't know many sellers who say, I'm listing my property today, right? But I'm not going to sell it for another 9 months. And guess what? I'm going to have to go through 2 or 3 other agents too. And I'm totally cool with that. That's my plan all along. That's not their plan. Put it on the market today to sell it, right? With this one agent. That's the reason why they interviewed 3 agents.
When you go through expired, I'm just curious, do you ever find a correlation between, the price per square foot being so high that that's why it didn't sell, or is that not a conclusion you get?
Oh yeah, because there's times I've got sellers who want to pick a really high price per square
You can
foot.
show them that.
Yep,
This is
they wound up
Okay.
expiring.
Cool.
Yep. And I will include those expired and withdrawn, Mary, that did sell, because when they left the market, this is where they were. This is why. I mean, nothing has sold over $290 a square foot, right? There's 16 expired and withdrawals that are over $290, right? But there's nothing in the solds that is sold. So you want to go, into the frontier on pricing. I mean, we're not going to have much success based on the expireds and the solds. Okay. Let's see here.
And is this a specific tool, or is you're just getting all the data from MIS?
Yep.
Yes.
And then I help you guys build the CMA spreadsheet. Yep. I give you kind of I've got a couple videos I show to help people when they're at home doing it. But there's kind of just the categories you pull over, and then the ones you can delete.
I got
Okay.
lost.
All right. Let me see here. So let's jump to ideally 29 is when you get that agreement on the list price. So looking at the sold information available, can you understand how a reasonable buyer would price your house between, and you identify that price range? If no, share with me why you feel that way. If yes, so based on your needs, where do you feel we should price the home? Hopefully the response is a reasonable price. I agree. Now let's make sure that the price will indeed satisfy your needs. At that point, that's when you do your net sheet with them, right? Because again, this is a win-win relationship. If the price that the seller and you have come to the conclusion of doesn't meet their financial needs, then we got a problem here, right? Better to know now than, when you're presenting the offers. And then 30, this is absolutely one of the best things. If you take one thing from this class today, this is a really good dialogue. This is the how will you feel if your home sells tomorrow dialogue. And I think this is an important one. If you've done a very good job on pricing, because there's times I've oversold stuff, right? And then I get buyer's remorse, or they get buyer's remorse or seller's remorse. And they, you underpriced it, you sold it too quick. You're like sitting there like, well, shit, that's a good thing, right?
No, I know that.
So this dialogue is basically before moving to mutual expectations. Okay, how would you feel if your home sells tomorrow? Asking the seller that question. It's a dangerous question, right? Because you may not want to hear what the answer is. But it's gonna, it's like we know it's an objection that comes up. I've sat here in a manager's chair and answered. I've had, well, the seller now, they don't want to sell. They want to raise the price $30,000 because we have 5 offers on the property, right? They think I undersold the property.
Priced it well.
Right. They thought I did this. Now they want to pull it off the market. Now they want to fire me, right? So some of this is, you know what? An ounce of prevention prevents, a pound of
something.
treatment, right?
But it allows
So-
you to you get one, and then they give you a 24-hour ultimatum offer. 24-hour ultimatum. You got to accept it. No, I want to have my open house.
Yep.
Right? So you continue, and you end up with 5 offers, let's say, or 6 offers.
Okay.
But then you get to select the one that you want.
Yeah.
Versus you have more leverage versus then.
Yeah, but sometimes sellers, when they have that much activity off the bat, they feel like maybe they underpriced it.
What
Would you
if
explain
after that you don't get any
escalation
offer?
type of?
Yeah, but it may be too late. They may, and again, I've had situations
would be
where
a problem,
regardless
right?
of where we escalate, they still feel like they should have started higher and they would have escalated.
From there.
Yep. So I'd feel like we priced the property too low. So may I ask why you'd feel that way? Is your goal to get your needs met within your designated time frame? Would you agree that pricing your home at the appropriate price entry point increases your odds of getting 1 or more offers within that designated time? And would you feel your needs were any less satisfied if the offer came in the first day as opposed to the 60th? And I think that's that's the best question in there, right?
Yes, I agree. Now, when when going through the presentation and you know that they're not in a hurry because the house is completely paid off, and they want to go a little bit higher, would you have the conversation of, okay, well, this is the price I think it should be at, but it's your home, let's do it at the price that you like. However, I'd like to get agreement from you that in 2 weeks or whatever, if we don't get a lot of movement, that we then come down to the price that we agreed on. Is that would be an appropriate next step?
Yep.
I
Yeah,
think
you can do
that's
that.
important, because if you
What I
let it sit, then the days on the
Right,
market,
the price
your
is
price
lower
is
than
gonna
it would have
be-
been.
yes.
Right.
what I tell them is, Mr. Seller, when you have a lot of showings and you don't have any offer, that means the buyers have rejected your price. But if you have no showings, that means the agents have rejected the price. So at that point, you're going to have to agree to,
Okay, that's a good
yeah.
Yep.
second piece to it.
And one of the things, like in this course, the core beliefs is what's put in motion stays in motion, and what that is relating to is that pricing too. And what we've seen in many cases is they start too high, and you've seen the properties reduce, and then it sells for 15,
Much less.
20 below
Much
where
less.
it really should have sold. Because we've all been in those buyer situations. The buyers are like, why hasn't this sold? And then they're looking around for reasons why the house hasn't sold. You know, they're like looking for problems.
no
They're
one
assuming now,
wants it.
it's the street, it's the bus stop that's down there, it's something, you know, and now it's got to sell at a reduced price. And if you can draw a correlation when you're doing your pricing, you know, when you're looking at, you know, why homes sell for less, if you can do some of those correlations and look at days on market, that's a good indicator as well.
That's a
Yep.
good one to take. Okay.
yeah.
So, and again, some of this is eliminating the seller's remorse comes from the fact that you've had a lot of these tie downs throughout your conversation. You've had a lot of this conversation. You've whittled down these issues that there shouldn't be major flare-ups. So a lot of times you can go back to, remember we did that needs analysis. You know, if you're going to get, we've agreed to this price, we've come to a logical conclusion to get to that price. So I guess at this point is that all the research we just analyzed ensures this is the most appropriate price entry point. Now we really shouldn't care when the right person sees it as long as they see it within your designated time frame, correct? Therefore, if someone who's ready, willing, and able to pay $750 for your home sees it the first day it's on the market, we should expect an offer. Wouldn't you agree? You see, we really can't control when the right person sees it. We can only control if they see it. So if the right person sees it on the first day, in no way means we priced the home too low. It simply validates the fact that we priced it just right. Does that make sense? We get another tie down. All right. Stage 4 is the mutual expectations. So this is where we transition from pricing. We haven't even talked commission yet, right? Because
And it's about 2 hours later.
it's not 2 hours
Yes,
later.
it is.
Well, it should only be about 45 minutes later. So now that we've agreed on the price entry point, there's one more area we need to cover, and it's been my experience that conflict only arises when expectations differ. Wouldn't you agree? Another tie down. Great. Well, let me go over my role as your agent. So this is my role on page 32. We are almost done, folks. Again, this you can tweak this, modify this, make it your own, eliminate some of these, but there are some good things in here. 10 is where we review our marketing plan, right? When you get to number 10, market and promote your home in a professional manner. This is when you hop down to your marketing promotion plan. And note, this is at the end of this presentation, basically. This is at the end of we're not leading with marketing. Because again, there's other agents out there who will market a whole lot more than you, but it's not going to get them any better results, right? It's just usually going to drive more listers to them, not necessarily buyers to that listing. Install a yard sign, place an MLS. In MLS, you have a point at this point to talk about commission. You know, this is one, I know some agents, they do the pie chart, you know, 3% goes to the buyer broker, you know, 1% goes to my broker, 1% goes to sales and marketing so that I can market your home properly, and then 1% goes to me, right? So at that point, they're like, well, we want to do it for 4%. Well, do you want to take that out of the buyer side of the commission? Because what that's going to do is that's going to limit our ability to market your property to other people. Do you want me to take things out of my marketing plan at this point? Because that's the way I ensure that you're going to get the top dollar for your property. So it allows you to get into the basically going back to what you do to sell their home. Other things I add into marketing plan, coming soon campaign, Facebook promotion. Other things you guys do marketing campaign wise?
Mail.
Yep. Postcards. And that's usually it. Again, most agents, their marketing plans, it's usually like put in MRIS, and that's 93% of it.
Say that again?
There's demographic targeting.
Yeah, there's demographic targeting, but most of those buyers are coming in with an agent. If they're seeing it online, they're not just shopping on Facebook, right? They're not just shopping by postcards, right? They're not sitting there like, I wonder what house postcards are going to come to me today, and that's the house I'm going to buy, right? They go online.
No, absolutely not.
Right. So, that marketing drives more sellers to agents. It doesn't necessarily always drive buyers. There's things you can do to increase buyer exposure and create some anticipation. But again, number one thing is it's got to be priced right for any of that to matter.
Interesting.
All right. And then, let me see, where are we? 33. After reviewing the marketing plan, do you feel your home will be exposed and promoted? So again, you're getting buy-in. Is there anything in the plan that concerns you or you'd like to change? Sometimes this is when the commission comes up. And we've got and I'll send you guys after the end of this, we've got a whole commission objection handling script for those. The next part is now we actually talk about a seller's role. So the seller's role is on page 34. So you want them involved in this. And, like 14, be brutally honest with me if you feel I'm not meeting your expectations, right? Keep all marketing information displayed and inform me if it's running low. I always find this one that it's like a gotcha. Like it's like the sellers are sitting there like they literally think like a bell goes off when the brochure box is. Yeah, they just, we should have known. But sometimes that's what you're hearing is they're just not getting enough communication from you, right? Mm-hmm. And they're expecting you to call them, like a girlfriend, pay more attention to them. So there's things you want to be proactive in your plan so that sellers, because when you have a seller calling you wondering what you're going to do next, to me that's like a red flag that I have not set these expectations correctly. And for some properties that take longer on the market, I'll give them a marketing calendar. Because again, with so much of our marketing done online, it's kind of like in the olden days we used to do ads, right? Here's the ad I ran on 3/17. Here's the one I ran on 3/24 for your home, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. You had something tangible, I can hand them, right? With online, it's 24/7, which is awesome, right? But it's 24/7. There is no end and beginning. So you've got to create some of these events.
There are charts to show how many views and impressions and things like that.
Yep, exactly. Yep. So but that means you got to remind yourself. I've got to send that chart to them on a weekly basis. I've got to let them know doing a broker's open, or I'm running a Facebook ad on Tuesday. I'm doing a Facebook Live open house on Wednesday. Things like that. You want to make sure that they know all the things you're doing. And then 35 this is the verification of value. Basically, we're gaining agreement on the whole project itself. So if you think we've clearly defined the roles, do you think they're fair? Should anything be included? Do you see value in what I do? And finally, 36. After our conversation tonight, I feel like we've got the makings of a win-win relationship. Don't you agree? Do you feel I can handle the job of selling your home? Great. Then let's move ahead. But we want to go ahead and visit with another realtor.
Oh, after all that.
Right. After 4 hours with them, right, Mary?
Yes.
Well, I can appreciate that. Is there anything they could say or do that would result in you giving them the listing, right? Pull this out now, right? Because they may have something that they just Well, it's commission. Well, it's price. We're just not sure about pricing. It gives you a chance to go back and reevaluate that, right?
But you were trying to take each category and reevaluate it at that time.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And again, you bitten this thing off in small little chunks, got an agreement, moved along.
Right.
At the end, if you wind up, now the big decision needs to be made, and if they're resisting, okay, now I know where I've got to go back. And I've got some tie downs because I had some buy-in. I know what their needs are. I know why they have those needs. And I can kind of use that to kind of focus the
And
conversation.
sometimes they've already had another agent that they promised, or they're just trying to figure out
Yeah.
where to go.
Right. And
And then
sometimes you win.
there's no rhyme or reason, in other words.
There usually is, but sometimes they also give you BS answers, right? And if you haven't been listening or haven't been asking the right questions, sometimes they'll tell you, well, we felt that we just connected better with them, right? And the house comes on for $50,000 more than what you listed it for, right? It wasn't a connection, right? It was price. Okay. No, we just think we should since we made the appointment. If you'd like to, I'd be more than happy to call the other agent and let them know you've chosen me to sell your
I've done that,
home.
and it was such a thrill.
That way,
Loved it.
that way we don't waste any more time keeping your home off the market. What'd you say? Would you like me to make those calls? All right, and then here's the other one. If you really get hey, we just need to pray on this. We need to sleep on this. We love you. You're already digging into some teriyaki chicken with them. I mean, things are great, but they just need a second. Okay, well, let's do this then. Since we're here together, let's complete the listing agreement, and I'll just leave it with you, right? If you decide you're ready to put the home on the market, and when you wake up tomorrow morning, call me, and I'll pick it up immediately, right? This way, you don't waste any more time than is necessary in getting the home exposed. How does that sound? I mean, that's a really good
Usually I find
close.
they're worn out after all that.
Especially if
they're
it's
not-
4 hours, yes.
It wouldn't be 4 hours.
Well, to come up to yes, you have it prepared
No, I'll tell them
beforehand.
let's pray together now.
Right. And then page 37 is just the kind of basic breakdown of everything we covered. The supplemental tools,
And then they sign.
yeah. Supplemental tools, 39. 40 is a letter to the seller, kind of the what comes next. Letting the seller know what comes next is really important throughout the process, right after you get the listing and also right after it goes under contract. And then thank you notes. If the seller will be interviewing other agents or if they selected another agent. Always close that loop and find out why. I mean, I think it's worthwhile to, don't just get pissed. Just, be professional, find out what happened.
Don't sleep the night, but don't get pissed, right?
Yeah. Because sometimes what happens is, what? The reason why they pick that agent is because they overpromised and they're going to underdeliver. So keep that bridge, Make sure that you've kept it in a good relationship when you left because they might be calling you back. And give them permission to call you back. So. Any questions?
Very good.
Very good.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, it's definitely a lot, and it takes a lot of practice. And again, if you can just implement a little bit of things, a couple of the and if you can just remember, like Lavina was, that needs analysis, getting to those things, getting those little tie downs throughout the conversation, I think helps a lot. Cool. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Awesome job.
Pre-listing packet.
Yeah, I think that's always a good idea, is to send your pre-listing